Finishing today with 2 stops here in the great state of Oklahoma. And I'll tell you, all across this tour, it has been incredible. The energy, the passion, the enthusiasm that we're seeing. The grassroots are on fire. And what we're seeing all across the country is we're seeing conservatives uniting. Conservatives are coming together behind this campaign. We're seeing the old Reagan coalition coming back together. We're seeing evangelicals and conservatives and libertarians. We're seeing young people and Hispanics and African Americans and Jewish voters and women and Reagan Democrats all coming together. And that from day one has been the key to victory. If conservatives unite, we win. And we're seeing that happening more and more every day. Happy to answer any questions.
Senator, do you think your reputation as somewhat abrasive and unwilling to compromise might affect your chances in a general election or your ability to govern?
Well, look, I understand that folks in the press want Republicans to go to Washington and be docile and house-trained. They want Republicans to behave, sadly, like Republican leadership does, rolling over and funding the entirety of the Obama agenda. Giving in to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and funding Obamacare and funding executive amnesty and funding Planned Parenthood and funding the catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal and funding President Obama's indefensible plan to bring Syrian refugees to this country, even though the FBI has told us they cannot vet those refugees to make sure they're not ISIS terrorists. But it is only in the crazy environs of Washington, D.C., the establishment, and a lot of folks in the press, that people want Republicans to surrender more. I'll tell you what the American people want, is they want leaders who actually do what we say. They want leaders who will stand up and follow through and defend the Constitution and defend our freedom and stand with the American people. And I think that's precisely why our campaign is seeing such tremendous energy. And you know, you talk about the general election. Every stop we have across the country, people come up and say, I'm a Democrat. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012, and yet I'm with you. You know, some of the folks who travel with us nationally, they may remember we were in Iowa at a coffee shop, standing at a soda fountain. I was visiting with a couple of folks there in Iowa, mentioning that one after the other we hear Democrats saying that the next person that we talked to was a fellow named Randy. An older man with a white beard. He said he was a Vietnam veteran. He said exactly that. He said, I voted for Obama in 2008. This election, I'm with you. And I called to the folks who were with us. I said, look, did you get that on tape? Now, I'll note, nobody's shown it on air. But it was interesting because I didn't know he was the next fellow sitting in line, but he happened to be literally the next person at the soda fountain. In fact, I'll tell you, the last time I was in Tulsa, a man walked up to me. It was an older man, had calluses on his hand, had grease on his shirt. It's a working man. And he said, Ted, I've been a registered Democrat my whole life. He said, this morning I went to the county clerk's office and changed my registration to Republican to come vote for you. How do we win the general election? In November 2016, we do 2 things. Number 1, we bring back to the polls the millions of conservatives that stayed home in 2008 and 2012. We bring back the millions of evangelical Christians, the millions of Reagan Democrats. But number 2, we stand and fight for the working men and women of this country. If you look at the folks who are here, I haven't seen the crowd here, but I can tell you the folks are coming out to every rally we have. It's not the country clubs. It's not the rich and powerful. The people who are at rally after rally after rally are working men and women. It's truck drivers and mechanics and police officers and firemen and teachers and nurses. It's the working men and women of America who've been hammered for 7 years by the Obama-Clinton economy, who want to believe again in the promise of America. And we run in the general election against the bipartisan corruption of Washington that Hillary Clinton embodies. That's how we win.
Senator, satisfied? The terrorism has become one of the major issues for Americans, and some of your Democratic opponents, presumed Democratic opponents, made the point that American Muslims are kind of our first line of defense against lone wolf terrorists and against people coming into the country because they're in that community, they see what's going on. How would you respond to that, and can you tie that into Mr. Trump's call to ban all Muslims from the country?
There's no doubt, following Paris and San Bernardino, the seriousness of this election has risen dramatically. The most important determination that Americans are making is who is prepared to be Commander-in-Chief. Who has the experience, who has the judgment, who has the strength, who has the clarity of vision. And it's particularly perilous right now because we have a president in Barack Obama who is utterly unable and unwilling to keep this country safe. The most important obligation of our president is to be Commander-in-Chief and keep this nation safe. And both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have demonstrated they are manifestly unfit to do so. They are unwilling as a political matter to even utter the words radical Islamic terrorism, much less develop and implement a coherent strategy to defeat it. This makes no sense. They're ostriches sticking their heads in the sand. They are captives of political correctness, and political correctness is costing American lives. If I'm elected president, we will have a Commander-in-Chief who makes clear to the world, we will defeat radical Islamic terrorism. And we won't weaken, we won't degrade, but we will utterly destroy ISIS. We need a clarity and a focus so that every militant on the face of the planet knows if you go and take up arms, if you join ISIS and wage jihad against the United States of America, if you attempt to murder innocent Americans, you're signing your death warrant. That's what the American people need and deserve. And if I am Commander-in-Chief, if I am elected president every day, my focus will be keeping this country safe.
Senator, the Washington Post, you fired back against the Washington Post for releasing that political depiction of your daughters as monkeys. They have since took down the cartoon, and they now say they released an editor's note saying that they understood why it was released, but that it shouldn't have been released. Do you accept that explanation?
Oh, listen, it's Christmas time. It's a time to be with your family. It's a time to play with your kids. I'm looking forward tonight to being with my little girls and having a wonderful Christmas by the tree. You know, I have to admit, yesterday when I saw that cartoon, not much ticks me off. But making fun of my girls, that'll do it.
Amen.
That tweet that I sent, I typed that out on my iPhone. And listen, I mean, all of us learned in kindergarten, don't hit little girls. It's not complicated. Don't make fun of a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old girl. Listen, everyone expects the mainstream media to be liberal, to be biased. Folks want to attack me, knock yourself out. That's part of the process. I signed up for that, that's fine. But my girls didn't sign up for that. And I have to say, you know, when people ask me what's the hardest part of the campaign, the single hardest part of the campaign is being away from my daughters. Is getting up and getting on an airplane and leaving and not being able to kiss my daughters good night, not being able to read them a bedtime story. And so it used to be for a long time the rules across the board, the kids are off limits. That should be the rules. Don't mess with our kids. Don't mess with my kids. Don't mess with Marco's kids. Don't mess with Hillary's kids. Don't mess with anybody's kids. Leave kids alone. And if the media wants to attack and ridicule every Republican, well, that's what they're going to do, but leave our kids alone.
What do you think about the support that you've been getting from Senator Rubio, for example?
Look, it's been very encouraged. Marco has reached out and publicly supported me. Jeb has reached out and publicly supported me. Donald Trump just tweeted out and publicly supported me. You know, I have appreciated that. There ought to be unanimity, and you know what? There shouldn't be a partisan line. It should be true for both Democrats and Republicans. We ought to agree, leave our kids alone. Let's argue about marginal tax rates. Let's argue about policy. But don't be attacking 5-year-old girls. That has no place in politics. And I appreciate that the Post pulled it down. It was the right thing to do, and I appreciate they did that.
All right, last question.
States where we've got a lot of commonality. States where our grassroots team is incredible. It is stronger than any other candidate in every one of these Super Tuesday states across the SEC. And so the first 4 states we are positioned to do, I believe, very well in each of the first 4 states. We've got fantastic teams on the ground. We're the only campaign that has announced county chairs in all 171 counties in each of the first 4 states. But we're also the only campaign that has announced congressional district chairs in all 163 congressional districts in the first 24 states through March 14th. And I think Super Tuesday is teed up to be a tremendously good day for our campaign. And Oklahoma is going to play a critical part in that. Oklahoma, the role of the voters of Oklahoma, I believe, is going to be to help ensure that the next Republican nominee for president, the next president, is a real and a proven conservative. And I could not be more encouraged by the grassroots support we've got in Oklahoma and nationally. You know, nationally we've got over 160,000 volunteers. We have roughly 600,000 contributions, people going to tedcruz.org contributing online. That's the strength of the campaign. That's the passion of the campaign, is the grassroots, and every day it's getting stronger and stronger, and I'm very encouraged. And with that, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And I want to take a moment to announce Jim as the next Miss Universe. Oh wait, is that not right? Oh, I read the wrong card. You know, I will say something. Let me say, Jim is a principled conservative fighter. I want to thank the men and women of Oklahoma for sending Jim to fight for you every day in Washington. Neither Jim nor I are exactly beloved by Republican leadership. There's a reason both of us need food tasters in the members' dining room. And I will say this, listen, as Oklahomans, you know, Texans kind of pride themselves on being tough. Woo! You know, a famous Texan, Chuck Norris, tough guy, very tough guy. Well, I'll point something out, you know. Little kids all over the world wear Superman pajamas when they go to bed. Superman wears Chuck Norris pajamas. And Chuck Norris wears Jim Bridenstine pajamas. Now, how many of y'all watched the Republican debate last week in Vegas? How fantastic is it that we have so many young, talented, dynamic Republican candidates for president? And what a contrast with the Democrats. You know, I'm pretty sure the first Democratic debate consisted of Hillary and the Chipotle clerk. Well, actually, no, that's not fair. That's not fair. We cannot forget about Bernie Sanders. So now the Democratic field consists of a wild-eyed socialist with ideas that are dangerous for America and the world. And Bernie Sanders. They're hosting it at Leavenworth. They wanted to make it easier for Hillary to attend. You know, we're here this morning because our country's in crisis. Because we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. And we're going to pass Kate's Law. We're going to stop releasing criminal illegal aliens, and we are going to end welfare for those here illegally. In the days that follow, we will rebuild our military. And we will honor the commitments made to our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines. And that includes reforming the VA so every veteran can choose his or her doctor.